Okay, just for the purposes of the record, tell me who you are, what your job is, and how to spell your name.
Okay. My name is Miguel Gutierrez. Miguel Gutierrez. I work at the Conservation Research Laboratory at Texas A&M University, and I am a graduate student. I'm on my second year, and I am almost done. I graduate on August 11th.
Okay. Why don't we start?
Cool.
Okay, you can, I guess, sort of look at me rather than staring right into there, like talk to me.
Okay.
That way you'll be a little less deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Definitely.
what do we have here?
So on my left hand, we have a dispart sight, and on my right hand, we have what is called a tangent sight. These sights were used in tandem on top of a naval gun to aim at very long distances.
And these are not the real thing that you're holding in your
This is not the real thing. This is a plaster cast, but they are exact replicas of the real thing. They were made out of brass, mainly brass, but there were other metals in there, such as copper. And the dispart sight goes right at the front in the area that is called the second reinforce, in line with the trunnions. The tangent sight goes at the back on the breech. If you see closely here, there's a sight mass. Each gun that was meant to have sights on it was cast with sight masses already in place, because the whole idea was to have something to support the sight itself. Of course, the sight doesn't fit here, but because it's a replica, but this is where it would go. Let me try to put it in, and we're good, roughly. And there is also a sight mass for the dispart sight right here. You would put it here, and you would drill 2 bolts here to hold it in place. And this is the placement of the gun sights.
Hang on one second. Remember, you can talk to me.
Okay.
Okay, so what do you have in your hand here?
In my left hand, we have what is called a dispart sight, and in my right hand, we have what is called a tangent sight. Dispart sight, or otherwise known as a front sight, was used to fix the difference in thickness from the breech of the gun down to the muzzle. And it was placed right here at the second reinforce, in line with the trunnions, and on the sight mass. Made out of iron. When the gun was cast, it was cast with a sight mass. You place the sight here, and you drill 2 bolts to keep it in place. Same thing goes for the tangent sight placed at the breech. You have a sight mass right here, cast with the gun, with the intention of putting a tangent sight in place right about here.
And these are not original pieces.
These are not original pieces. These are casts, but they are cast. They're exact to the exact dimensions of the real thing. So what is very interesting about the gun sights found on CSS Georgia is that this is potentially the biggest find we have, the biggest collection of gun sights we have from a single naval vessel, Civil War naval vessel, to my knowledge. We have as many as 8 gun sights back at the CRL, the Conservation Research Lab at Texas A&M University. And it is we are very fortunate to have this large collection. We have about 2 gun sights from USS Westfield, and again another 2 from Monitor. And as I said, Georgia has as many as 8, including also about 5 percussion locks. So the gun furniture found from CSS Georgia it's quite a find. It's very interesting, and this is a very great opportunity we have to study naval gunnery during this time in our country's history.
And you were discussing with me earlier on the dive barge that many of us have the idea from watching movies that they just point the black tube at the bad guys and pull a string, and there's a big blast and people die.
Yes.
There's a lot of math and a lot of physics and a lot of machinery involved in this process.
Yes. Aiming a gun at sea during the Civil War was a science. It was a very meticulous process. Geometry, physics, mathematics, even algebra was used to get the perfect calculations to aim the gun and have a satisfactory result. A basic way in which these gun sights were used is the fact that a gun was tested with different powder charges, with different projectiles, different guns, and they were tested at different angles of elevation. When you elevate a gun, it shoots farther generally. And so once you get those results, you put them all on a graph, or what we would call a gunner's chart. So for example, let's say this gun was raised at 2 degrees. At 2 degrees with a powder charge of 1/4 the projectile's weight, it fires at such a distance. We'll give it 700 yards. And then you mark that on the gunner's chart. Now, when you have that on the gunner's chart, you put that distance on the back of the tangent sight. This scale is raised up and down according to the distance you want to reach with the gun. The gun captain would say, that vessel is about 700 or 800 yards away. He would tell that to the person in charge of raising the tangent sight. 700 or 800 would be on the back of the tangent scale. You would raise it to that point, and then you would aim using the bottom notch at the very top. You would line up the notch with the apex of the dispart sight. You would have that is your line of sight. It goes from the notch to the apex to the target, and you know that's what they would do because it was raised at that angle of elevation. And now you're at sea. You have swells. So once you're locked on, you will only be locked on for maybe a second, probably maybe two if you're lucky. So that's why you have instant fire, which is the percussion locks that were also found on CSS Georgia. Those we don't use powder trains anymore. Those use fulminate of mercury. Fulminate of mercury, in simple terms, is the material that you have on the little poppers that you get at fairs. You throw them to the ground and they pop. Now you have that same material here, but in greater quantities. All you need to set those off is friction, and it's instant fire. So you pull the lanyard, the percussion lock hits the fulminate of mercury on top of the touch hole, and that fire goes all the way down to the powder charge, which ignites it, which fires the gun instantly. Once you are, like I said, have the right line of sight from the notch to the apex to the target. Once you have that, you pull a lanyard and it's instant fire. And that's the basic overview of the function of these gun sights.
So far from being just a pile of railroad iron and some waterlogged wood and a homemade warship that really didn't even work, what we're finding is a remarkable cache of examples of Civil War high tech.
Yes, very remarkable. It's rare because the CSS Georgia was scuttled in a hurry by the Confederates upon General Sherman's advance on Savannah. When the siege of Savannah began, in true Confederate spirit, you would rather sink your own vessel than have the Union capture it. So once it was sunk, it was at the bottom of the Savannah River to prevent the Union from capturing the guns, the ordnance, the gun furniture, and use it against the Confederacy. So this is a very, because they did that, it gives us an opportunity to study Civil War era gunnery, and Civil War is just a big cache of Civil War history, and it's very rare because it was sunk with everything still on board. So that being said, we are very fortunate to be here working on this project, and it is telling us a lot about Civil War Navy, especially the Confederate Navy.
Awesome. Spell the name of this site? What's it called?
Tangent sight.
Tangent. I got that. That's cool. And the other one is called what?
Dispart sight.
Okay.
D-I-S-P-A-R-T. Sight. S-I-G-H-T.
Could you do the where they sit narration again, kind of while I'm shooting this way? It's going to get a different angle.
Okay.
So just put them both on. I'll give that back to you.
Okay.
You don't have to explain the whole thing again. Just do a narration of this is and this is where it goes.
Okay. On the right hand, we have a tangent sight. It was placed at the breech of the gun, otherwise known as the back of the gun, right here on the tangent sight mass. On my left hand, we have a dispart sight. It was also called the front sight, and it was placed at the second reinforced, that is, this area of the gun, in line with the trunnions on the sight mass, which is this lifted area right here. It's bolted with 2 bolts to keep it in place.
It's really unusual to get to see these on the cannon. You never see this in a museum.
No, you don't. After the Civil War, most cupreous metals, by cupreous I mean brass, copper, they were melted and repurposed. And so if any vessels that had gun sights or anything made out of copper, brass, nickel, it was melted and used for something else. These were recovered because the Confederates sunk CSS Georgia in a hurry, very quickly. They didn't recover anything. They just wanted to keep it away from the Union. So that being the case, we have recovered a wide variety of these gun sights, and they are particularly rare. But they can, just the gun sights, the measure of the tangent sight, the height, the distance between each division on the tangent side scale tells us a lot about naval gunnery during the Civil War.
Awesome. Thanks.
Not a problem.